And joining me now from New York City is James Rubin, who served as U.S. Assistant Secretary of State in the Clinton administration. He is also the co-host of the podcast, The X-Files with Christiane Amanpour, which is now available to watch on YouTube. Mr. Rubin, really appreciate your time here on India Today. Just hours ago, Defense Secretary, or should I say Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth has confirmed that a U.S. submarine sank an Iranian warship in the Indian Ocean, the first such torpedo strike since World War II. Has this war now formally crossed into direct U.S.-Iran naval confrontation?
Well, yes, I think it has. Look, it's been very confusing for the world, for Americans as well, to try to assess exactly what the United States military is doing. And when our defense secretary speaks so casually and sort of like a cheerleader about war, it's troubling. But when you hear from the U.S. military, you hear the facts. And I think that's what your viewers probably want to hear. And I think the fact is the United States is now conducting a massive operation around the world to destroy Iran's military conventional ballistic missile capability, because that regime has been such a danger to the region and played such a pernicious role in the world. But I don't think the objectives of this operation are as clear as they might be. We know we can destroy military capabilities. The Navy, as you point out, this is an unusual thing to be taking a ship down in the Indian Ocean. And the Iranian Navy won't have much left when this is over. The Iranian missile capability won't have much left. Their Air Force won't have much left. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean the regime won't survive. And that's what's so confusing for so many people.
You've made an interesting distinction here, Mr. Rubin, that yes, the military may not have much of left as far as Iran is concerned, but the regime would still survive. Why are you saying that?
Well, because, look, Iran was a threat to the world because of the way it used its missiles, the way it used its terrorism support for Hamas, for Hezbollah, the way it threatened to close down the Strait of Hormuz, and now the way it's attacked all of its neighbors, including Turkey now. But the regime inside Iran is a different question. That regime survives because it's ideological. It believes in the Islamic revolution. That revolution is anti-American at its core, anti-Israel at its core. And there are tens of thousands of Iranian members of their military and their special police who believe in that revolution. And when they face protesters in the streets, they've shown a willingness to kill their own people. That's really monstrous. It caused the deaths of many thousands just last month. And that regime's capability is based on machine guns, small arms, and ideology. And you can't kill an ideological contingent of tens of thousands from the air. You can't win a war of regime change from the air. And so the best one can hope for is for this war to end with a weaker Iran. But unfortunately, it may be a chaotic Iran. And that's why I say that there's a distinction between its military and the regime inside the country.
So did Washington perhaps underestimate Iran's ability to retaliate?
You would think that as a reasonable conclusion from the fact that surprise in the market, surprise in the oil sector, surprise in the number of countries that have been attacked, Turkey, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Bahrain, Jordan, British bases. The Iranians said they were going to do that, but last time they didn't really do very much. And I think there may have been some in our government who haven't really understood the revolutionary extremist nature of this regime. They don't seem to have much left to lose. So they're trying to cause as much pain as possible and lashing out where they can with their drones and their missiles and causing chaos. That's what happens in a war. Wars are not predictable. They're not simple things. That's why it's frustrating for me as an American to hear my Mr. Hegseth talk about war in this kind of cheerleader fashion and bragging. And this is a serious business. There's serious consequences, and it should be approached seriously.
It's day 9, or no, it's in fact day 5 of this conflict. Who is actually winning this war right now?
Well, I think there's no question the United States military is destroying the Iranian conventional ballistic missile and regime targets. That's, if that definition is who's suffering more and who's winning, I think that's clear that it's the United States military. I don't think there was any question we could defeat the Iranian military. We're the United States of America. The trouble here is that people have come to hope and expect the United States military and its civilian leaderships to act responsibly in the international community, to make a case for war. If you take it to that ultimate action of war, you need a really, really, really good reason to start a war. And I don't think the administration did a very good job of showing why this needed to happen right now. And when they did make that case, they talked about changing the regime. The president said, you know, help is on the way. The president said, we're going to give the people of Iran a chance to overthrow their regime. But nothing we've done in that context of regime change has made me think it's more likely. So if the question is winning on a conventional military level, I think clearly the United States is winning. On a broader level of the chaos caused in the region and the unsettling nature of this, and the fact that the regime is still standing, I think it's more of a draw.
And isn't the US constantly shifting goalpost from preventing Iran's nuclear capability to simply degrading Iran's military and forcing regime behavior change? What is the end game?
Yes, you're absolutely right. I don't think the administration has articulated at all, and this is what's so troubling, what their real objectives are. One day it's regime change, the next day it's preventing their nuclear capability, which was already deeply damaged by the strikes in past months. And another day it's just, as you say, degrading their military. I think where we're going to end up, because they probably will realize that regime change isn't a realistic objective and the nuclear program was already damaged, they're going to end up saying the standards for the war should be the weakness of the Iranian military, the weakness of their navy, their air force, their ballistic missiles, and the weakness of the regime. But they'll still have a lot of drones. They'll still have a lot of ability to do damage. And exactly how you go from a state of war, which we're in right now, to an end to that conflict is deeply uncertain. And I can't honestly say I know the answer to that question.
So how will this conflict end, Mr. Rubin? Who will play that role of a mediator? Is a room for an off-ramp really available right now, given the nature of escalation and Iran having taken that position that they have nothing to lose, and hence it is going all out to target US bases, US facilities, US assets in the entire West Asia?
Yes, you've put it very well. It isn't obvious how this war will end. I think we hope, I certainly hope, the administration seems to hope, that at some point soon, some more pragmatic Iranian leader will reach out to the United States. They have reached out, apparently through intelligence channels, to propose a discussion. But until they name a new leadership, until they see where this several weeks of bombing end up, I can't see how they could negotiate an end to the war. President Trump likes to negotiate deals. I'm sure he'd be thrilled to get involved in a discussion of how to stop the conflict. But what the question will be at that point is, what are the terms? Will Iran give up its nuclear capability? Will it promise never to build ballistic missiles? Will it promise not to slaughter its own people if they rise up? Those are the hard questions that the administration is going to need to answer when it gets in a negotiation, which I expect to happen probably in several weeks. But this is going to be a long conflict.
Okay, so you are sensing that even that negotiation will begin only after several weeks. So let me ask the last question, and this is coming after the Indian Ocean is now in this entire theater of war. Is this more of a might is right kind of a situation with no honor or respect of international boundaries? And every country will be forced to pick a side.
I do think that you've captured one of the unusual qualities of this war. In the early days, European countries, Arab countries. They didn't agree with the United States' decision to go to war, so they didn't support it. They didn't provide bases. They didn't work together with the United States. But when Iran retaliated against Arab countries, when it struck Dubai, when it struck Abu Dhabi, when it struck Jordan, Bahrain, and now Turkey, and then those countries were forced to take a side, including the British, the French, the Germans, all of them now realizing that their best hope is to work with the United States to try to make sure the world economy continues to function as smoothly as possible so that the Straits of Hormuz don't become a complete dead zone. With respect to India and the concerns your people in your country have, look, it's a problem. Why the United States went off into the Indian Ocean and attacked this Navy ship is what happens when war expands. But I do think it would be helpful for the United States to consult closely with your government, with other governments in the region, to try to calm nerves and to make clear that the focus of their attention is not the Indian Ocean, but rather the Iranian military, and try to limit the scope of expanding of the war, which is expanding rapidly and troublingly and needs some diplomacy to minimize the concerns and instability.
All right, James Rubin, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State, thank you for speaking to India Today and joining us.
Thank you.